Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1713, Alaska bound. What's behind that? So, I was looking through this journal, this beautiful handmade leather journal. It's got even handmade page. Oh, I've got to show you. It's got handmade pages inside too. It's completely handmade from the pages to the cover, straps, everything. But this is there's some blank pages. But it's got these little booklets inside made of pages, and they're all handmade pages. So, and I made up this beautiful, beautiful journal. And rather than starting it at the front like most people will, you got to turn it around and go to the back. What's in the back? All good stuff. So this journal I was looking at, because this journal I got from Pike's Place Market at one of these little booths back in 2018 when I was last in Alaska, and I had a night in Seattle, because we started in Vancouver and then we went down to Seattle, and hair sticking up all over the place. Oh well, deal with it. So I left out of Vancouver, did this beautiful 7-night cruise on the Inside Passage of Alaska, and ended up in Seattle. And part of the thing when I got off the ship, I said, let's just do a tour of Alaska, do a tour around Seattle and all that. Something to kill the time, because we got off early in the morning, but I couldn't check until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to the hotel where I was staying for the night, because I was flying out early the next morning. In fact, I will tell you exactly when it was, because I woke up early so I could watch the royal wedding of Prince Harry getting married to Meghan Markle. It was the eve of their wedding. So that's when I got off the ship. So if you look up that date, that's the day that was the night before I got off the ship, because I watched them that morning while I was getting ready to go to the airport, and I got to see the whole ceremony up until the point of when they got into the carriage in front of the where'd they get married? In front of the church that they got married. And then we're heading off to go down the mall back to Buckingham Palace. So that was at the point that I stopped watching, because I had to go and get in my ride to go to get the shuttle to go to the airport. But anyway, so while I was in at Pike's Place, I found this gorgeous little booth that had all of these handmade journals in them. And I've got this one, and then I also have a black one that has this big button thingy on it with a bit of elastic that goes over the button. And I can't remember what I started writing in that one, but this one, for some reason, I started writing in about, I wrote down some research questions for times in Alaska, because I had this idea to work on a prequel. Now, if you've heard me talk before about my writing and everything else, when I do jigsaw puzzles, amazing things happen, because one part of the brain is working on solving the jigsaw puzzle, while the other part is working on the creative side. And I did a 1,500 piece jigsaw puzzle one time, and by the time I had finished, I created an entire book series. And this entire book series in my head. I know the character. I have all the characters written out. I have different plot stories. I have different plot ideas going and everything else. The only thing is that since I've moved onto this computer, I can't access any of my files. So I have to call up the company, because I used Scriniva as my writing platform and put everything into there. And now I have to call up the company to find out how I can get to my files, because it keeps saying that the files cannot be read. So I'm sort of like, yikes. I can't lose all that writing. I have a lot of it handwritten. I just don't exactly know where it is. But what's in here are the notes for a prequel to that series. And some of it takes place in Alaska. And I got inspired when I was walking around Ketchikan in Ketchikan, Alaska, when I was walking around. I've been to the Lumberjack show that morning. It was the first thing I did, was headed straight over to the Lumberjack show. And then after I left the Lumberjack show, I then started wandering around Ketchikan, came across Creek Street. Now, the last time I was in Ketchikan was with Brad in September 2009. And we didn't actually get to see a lot. We didn't get to see Creek Street, but we heard about it that evening on the ship when we're sitting having dinner with friends who had been out and exploring Creek Street and all of that sort of stuff. We had actually did a bus tour that took us up to the park where they have all the totems, and got a guided tour through there. And our guide that day was a botanist who was a professor at one of the local universities, and of course they were closed for the summer. So he his side job during the summertime was to be a tour guide, and he took us to the sanctuary where we got to see these eagles. And it still haunts me to this day. That was in September 2009. It still haunts me to this day that we walked in and these big, beautiful, magnificent birds could no longer fly, and they're sitting on a log at the entrance to of all things, salmon farm, and not quite, salmon hatchery. And we got to see these, and you could just see that they could look up at these beautiful open skies. There was no roof above them, no netting, no nothing. And they couldn't fly. They were just sitting on a log because they had been, that suffered injuries out in the wild there and got brought to the sanctuary to help them rehabilitate and all of that. But it turned out that their wings were so damaged that they couldn't fly any longer. And I was just sort of like heartbroken for these beautiful, magnificent birds that just soar in the sky. And we got to see a lot of bald eagles up in the trees and flying around. And it was just, my heart was like pounding, and it was just so beautiful to see them flying. But then to see these two that were just sitting there on a log, looking longingly at the sky and knowing that they couldn't spread their wings and fly because the wings just weren't working. It was heartbreaking. And then we walked through there. So we got to learn a bit about the eagle's life. And we walked through there into this salmon hatchery, and the salmon come up the creek. They flow upstream to go and lay eggs, and they lay the eggs in this hatchery. And then they, once they hatch, they get moved to this different pool, and then they get released at the beginning of salmon season to then go down the creek and go do whatever it is that salmon do. So they're not farmed, raised salmon. It's a safe place for them to hatch their eggs, and then they let them go. They stay. I can't remember how many months they stay there after hatching. And then from there, we went to the state park that had all these beautiful totems, and we got to hear the stories about the totems and what the different symbols meant and all of that. So that when I went back in 2018, I had already done all of that. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go to the lumberjack show, because I hadn't seen lumberjacks are one of my favorite activities. When we went to the AMP shows back in New Zealand, and the AMP shows were agriculture and produce. Yeah, AM. I am not doing a down thumbs up. Who knows? I'm going to do this instead. Was it this one? Oh, no, it's this one. This is the one I wanted to do. It was balloons. Yeah, that works. Anyway, if you have an Apple computer, you can have a lot of fun with it. The AMP shows, which were the agricultural and produce shows, very much like your state fairs here in the States. And they were held in the different regions around New Zealand, and you get to go along and you got to see like all of the farm animals, and they had the different shows for the farm animals based on size and weight and and type. And then they had all the produce side of it where, growing the biggest pumpkins or tomatoes or whatever, they could go along and bring in their fresh produce and stuff. And then they had lumberjacks was one of the things, and they would put on lumberjack shows, and they would be racing, and it just amazed. I mean, these guys just amazed me about how they could stand on a piece of log about, yay wide, and just stand there and swing this axe between their legs. And all I could think of is, what happens if it slips and it hits their leg? But it just amazed me that these guys were just so precise with their axe. So going to see the lumberjack show was sort of like good, because I hadn't seen lumberjacks in action since I was like in my early teens. So that was really cool to go and see. And these guys in the show were so talented, super, super talented. I mean, they were all world champions. They were all round champions. They were like the elite of the elite. And they had this competition because it used to be the Canadians would come over to the American side, or the Americans would go to the Canadian side. And the site that they have the stadium on where they do the show and everything was the original site of the American side of camp. And I can't remember the names of either camp. Somebody's coming into play. So I can't remember the names of either camp, which is a bit of a Bit of a bummer, but it's been a while. And anyway, and so I saw that, and then I went wandering around, and I came across Creek Street, and they had these billboards, these huge billboards, which I took detailed photographs of because I'm just standing there reading, going, "This is cool information." And while I'm reading these boards, I get this inspiration to do a prequel based in Ketchikan for my book series. And so I sort of like took out I had this little notebook that I would wander around with and take notes on my trip and stuff. And like I was trying to take notes of these billboards, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going to take photographs, which I did. And found out that like during Prohibition, and Alaska was in Prohibition before United States was in Prohibition. And at that time, Alaska was a territory of the United States. So before continental US went into Prohibition, Alaska was already in Prohibition. And so so there's all these stories there about how they used to smuggle the booze in, and about how in the 1960s, when they're going through and renovating Creek Street, they came across hidden stashes from Prohibition, of these stashes of bottles of booze that had been hidden in the walls or in these little secret compartments around the place and everything else. But for a nip, and a nip was half a teaspoon. Think about that, half a teaspoon. It was 50 cents for half a teaspoon back in the early 1900s, like around 1912. It was 50 cents for half a teaspoon. And when I was telling my younger stepson about it, he said to me, "Well, what would it be in today's rate?" And so we looked it up, and it was like $10.51 in today's rate for half a teaspoon of booze. Well, that's some expensive booze. And was it good? Who knows? Don't know. But I got inspired by the stories that I was reading on this board about how they lived life back then, and what Prohibition was like, what the whole history of Creek Street, and how it became the red light district of Alaska by federal law. I was looking through, and I have some of those notes I took in here, along with some plot ideas for how the story is going to go and that sort of thing. And so I was reading through that tonight, reading through all that information. I thought, I need to go back to Alaska. I need to go spend some time in Alaska. I need to get back there again. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to go with a group of people to Alaska? And we could just do like and one of Brad's, Brad and I, when we first did the Inside Passage, I totally fell in love with Alaska. It was so much like New Zealand as far as topography went. Some of the climate, all of that was very much like parts of New Zealand. And I got very homesick for New Zealand on my very first trip to Alaska. My second cruise, yes, I got homesick. I was also dealing with grief as well. So grief and homesickness on the same cruise. It was an emotional roller coaster one. But when we went to any ports, so when we went to Ketchikan and Juneau and Skagway, I just basically got out and walked. But I will tell you this, Juneau was like packed. It was packed. When we pulled into port, we were one of 6 ships in port. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, so you've got around 2,500, maybe about 2,500 passengers on each of these ships, not counting the crew. And so, times that by 6, what do you get? You get a lot of people. I think it was like, no, actually, I think it was around 3,000, like 2,500 to 3,000 passengers per ship. And by the time you calculated it up, plus add the crew, and there was like 18,000 people. I think it was. We came up with 3,000, I think was the number we came up with, based on the size ships that were in port, which ships were in port and stuff. And, we thought, that's 18,000 tourists that have hit Juneau. And I'm like, now, not all of them are going to be, there's going to be some that are still staying behind on the ship. There's going to be some that'll be on tours, because Juneau was a great place. We went and did, Juneau, we did whale watching. And we were towards the end of the season. We were in September. Now, when I went in 2018, I was in May. So I was the very first cruise that Celebrity Solstice did for Alaska. So everybody there was kind of like that was basically the start of the season. When we did it back in 2009, we were on one of the last sailings for the season. And when we were on that last sailing, we did a bus trip that took us past the Mendenhall Glacier, out a little further, and we got on this boat, and there was probably about 20 of us on this boat, and this boat took us like half an hour to get out to where the whales were, and we're watching for the whales, and you'd see them come over the water. We never saw any of them breach. We saw the tails come up and kind of like wave at you, and there was a lot of mother and calf, so you'd had the big tail of the mother, and they were humpbacks, I think they were. Yeah. And then you had the smaller tail of the calf. And occasionally you got to see 3 together, which was mum, dad, and baby. So that was kind of cool. And the tour that we were on, they guaranteed that we would see whales, or they would pay us $100 cash as we got off the boat. And I was like thinking, wow, that's a really good guarantee. I think it's partly why I chose that one. But the captain of the boat and his first mate / lecturer for us. she was like the girl Friday on the ship. Not only was she the first mate, she was also the person that interacted with the passengers served us lunch and told us all the history and stories and all of that. So, and that's where we learned that orcas are actually dolphins. They're not whales, they're dolphins, and they're not killer whales. They are killers of whales. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's where I learned that the largest dolphin is an orca. And people call them killer whales when they're actually killers of whales. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? You learn something new every day. And that one that has always stuck with me since then, since 2009. That has stuck in my brain. And people refer to orcas as whales. I'm like, they're not whales, they're dolphins. So next time you see an orca, it's actually a dolphin, not a whale. Anyway, so we got to see lots of different, and the first mate and the captain were super surprised about how many whales we saw. And they said, we were out here yesterday. We didn't see as many whales as we did today. But the day before they got breaching, whereas today, that day that we were on there, we didn't. They just sort of like come up over the surface of the, just like skim over the surface of the water and back in again. They didn't actually breach. And then their tails would come up. And you'd look for the water spouts, because they'd come, as they surface, they would spray their water out of the hole at the top so they could then breathe in. So it was kind of interesting learning all of that, but it was a lot of fun. And so we didn't do any of that time. So some people would have been out whale watching. I don't know how many whales they would have seen at the beginning of the season or not. And then there was tours that you could do onto the Mendenhall Glacier. There was other tours and activities around. So there wasn't exactly 18,000 people in town, but there was a lot of people in town. And like I walked around and I was sort of like, I took the bus into town and they dropped us off at the base of the tram that goes up the mountain. I'm looking up the top and going, there's a lot of cloud up there. I ain't going up there, which was just as well, because I watched this as I'm coming back to catch the bus, watch this tram swings up and it just hung there over the middle of the road. And it was like a full tram, and it swings out, comes up and stops right over the road. Very clear, but it was still well up, and I'm just sort of like, they're stuck. I didn't stay around to watch. There was a whole bunch of people standing there and watching and all that, and I was like, I'm just walking. And so I went along across some of the back roads in the downtown area that I hadn't done the last time, and they have is it Red Onion? The Red Saloon. I think it's Red Onion. There were people trying to go into this saloon, gets so packed. Brad and I somehow, on our little walk around town, managed to get into this place. We found a table to sit at. It was a it was a high top, and some waitress managed to find us, take our food order, and brought it out like 15 minutes later, and we were able to enjoy these really cool burgers. The burgers were amazing, and they had really good fries too. And I looked at that crush and I said, how do you find your, the waitress just amazed us. And then they had Sharpies on the table, so you could actually sign the table. You could sign they had these wooden support poles. You could go anywhere. You could sign anything, anywhere around the saloon. It was actually kind of cool. But it wasn't as packed as this one was. I mean, people were literally trying to push their way in. And I was like, people, use your brain. If you've got people in front of you who can't get in, what means that you're at the back? Are you going to be able to get in? And there's people on the inside trying to come out, but can't because of the crush of people trying to get in. It was just like crazy. So I was glad to get off the main road and just like wander around some of the backs. I got to see some really cool stores back there and came across some little mom and pop craft stores where they were selling their crafts and things, and they weren't crowded, and they were nice to go in and visit and just to have a look around at something that wasn't the main street. And then Skagway, I walked from the ship, I got off our ship. I had to walk the length of our ship. I think was there one or two in front of us. Where we were at the pier in Skagway. So when you come into Skagway kind of sits out over here, and you've got the piers that come in for the ships. And if you're on the very far, and if you're looking at Skagway, if you're on the very far right pier, there is this big, huge cliff face. And on the cliff face, there is all of this graffiti, but the graffiti is really cool. And it has got the history on there on every single ship that is docked at Skagway, every single cruise ship. And every time a ship comes into port for the first time, they get to decorate a portion of this cliff face. I don't actually know who does the decorating on it or who does the actual thing, but it puts the name of the ship up there and it puts the date of their first visit. And so it's a very interesting wall to read and to look at. And so I walked along the dock into Skagway. I just didn't realize how far it was to walk. It was probably a good mile, and there was this bitterly cold wind blowing. I didn't have the right jacket with me for that. Because when I was on the ship, it wasn't that cold. And I get down there and I'm like walking along, and all of a sudden you walk around this corner, and it's like you walked into a freezer that was blasting air. It was so cold. But I got into the main street area and the wind died down, and of course got sheltered by the wind. And I got to walk some of the side streets, some of the areas that we didn't get to see the last time that we were there. Walked past this jewelry store, and in the window of the jewelry store was this notice that says your husband called and says you can come and buy anything you like. And I'm like, well, they got some connection to heaven then. But next door was this really cool little takeaway place that had they had these things, they called them elephant ears, and they were like about this big. They were like this oval shaped thing about this big, and it was like this deep fried something. They were about this thick with a pocket of air in the middle, and then they just sprinkled it with cinnamon sugar. Oh, were really, really good. And it's where I bought 3 tubes of lip balm. And these 3 tubes of lip balm, I wish I had I still have them somewhere. Just don't exactly know where they are right now. But I have 3 tubes of lip balm that I bought from this takeout place. And they had things like seal urine, moose poop. No. Polar bear snot. Was it polar bears? No, polar bear's urine. They had there was a polar bear one, a moose one, and a seal one, and one was poop, one was urine, and one was snot, or something like that. They had their names on it. And apparently one of the local girls, and on this tube, it's got what it supports and all that. But this local girl needed to go to college, and her family couldn't afford to send her. And so rather than having a whole bunch of loans and everything else, she then came up with the idea of doing this lip balm, and there's 3 different flavors. And so she created these lip balms and started selling them in the local stores and stuff. Like they'll just have them there next to the register for people to purchase, and people were buying them. And she sold enough that she paid for her 4 years at college based on the sales of these lip balms. And I don't remember I can't remember what they said she was doing now with them, because she's finished college with no loans, not owing anybody anything, and came away with her business degree, with her degrees and everything else. And she's still making and selling these lip balms. And so I thought, well, good on her. And I thought, well, I'm going to support an enterprising young lady. And so I bought one of each. And they were the real coolest things. And I have a video somewhere on my Facebook page from 2018 talking about these 3 lip balms and what's on them and all of that. But they were really, really cool. But I really do need to go back to Alaska again, because I need to I want to do more upland. I don't want to do the Inside Passage. I want to head up into Anchorage and go up into, I would really like to go into Fairbanks and then work the way down through Denali National Park down to Anchorage, spend some time in Anchorage, maybe go down on the peninsula and spend a few days in Anchorage, then go down on the peninsula a little bit, because there's some really cool stuff down there. And then from Anchorage, get on a ship and head to Vancouver and go through either College Fjord, Glacier Bay, or see the what's the name of that? The other glacier that's there. It's been a while since I've been to, yeah. So I would like to go along and see the rest of Alaska. So I'm thinking, when will I go? When will I go? And because I love Alaska. It's the Northern Hemisphere version of New Zealand, of some areas of New Zealand anyway. But yeah, I'd like to go. So I'm thinking maybe next year, maybe we get a group of us together and we could just go and spend, 2 or 3 weeks in Alaska and start at Fairbanks, come down, go to Anchorage for a few days, because there's some really cool stuff to see in Anchorage. I will tell you this, I have been to so many, it's been a while though, because I haven't done this since 2018, I think it was the last time I did one of these. But at a lot of different trade shows I went to for travel professionals, the Anchorage Visitor Center was always there. And they always have these really cool little brochures that they give you. And they tell you about the free buses that you can take from here to there to there to there, and how to, you can go buy your license and go catch some salmon, and where you take it to, and they will actually dress the salmon for you, put it into travel safe packages, and ship it to your house. So by the time you get home from your cruise, your salmon will be sitting there waiting for you, that you caught in Alaska, in downtown Anchorage. They have a creek in downtown Anchorage that you can go salmon fishing on. And then there's those knives that you get with the curved blade, and it's got the handle on top. Can't think of the name of them now, but they will also ship them too, because you're not allowed to take them on planes. They will also ship them home. So a lot of places in Anchorage, if you buy stuff there, they will actually ship it to your home address for you. So that's really cool. I like that. Go shopping and don't have to worry about carrying an extra bag. And then going down the peninsula, there's some different places to go see down there. There's some really cool stuff that you can do. There's actually a day trip you can do from, you should probably go down, stay on the peninsula for a little bit. And because there's one of the places there that you can actually do a day trip on a boat, and it takes you up into College Fjord. And College Fjord has all of these different glaciers in there that are named after Ivy League schools, which is why it's called College Fjord. It's got glaciers up there you can go see. So I might go do that, and then come back to Anchorage, and then catch the transportation from Anchorage out to Seaward to get on the ship to then go down to Vancouver. But of course, on the way down, you'll stop at places like maybe at Skagway or Sitka. Sitka was one that one cruise line does. Sitka would be cool to go see, because it's got very Russian influence in there. Yes, I know my thumb was up. Thank you. So that would be a cool place to go see. So I want to go explore Alaska more. And I thought, maybe we could see who else wants to come to Alaska with us. So if you want to come to Alaska with us, we'll try and figure something out, either for next year, for 2025 or 2026. It'll be in the summer months. We may do like late August, early September, after the kids are back in school. Or we'll go, no, we won't do May, because May will be too close. My parents' 60th wedding anniversary is next year, and that's in March. So I want to go down to New Zealand for that. But anyway, so I'm thinking of going back to Alaska either next year or 2025 or 2026. I haven't decided yet which one, but this time I'm going to take a lot longer and go see some of the inside area of Alaska, of the main part, with Fairbanks and that sort of stuff. I'd also like to go off season at some point too. My niece and her husband, for their honeymoon last year, went up to Fairbanks and went to a camp that was a Northern Lights camp of some sort, which had all these different adventure stuff that they got to do. And they got to see the Northern Lights while they're up there. And they went in March of last year. Yeah, March. They went and they got to see the Northern Lights. So they checked that off their bucket list. So, well, that would be a really cool trip to go see. Go to Alaska in the middle of winter when nobody's there. Anyway, so if you'd like to come to Alaska with me, just private message me. Just send me a private message, and we'll put you on the list as we work out what trip we're going to do there to Alaska. But it will involve land and sea. And you can either join us for just the land portion, or join us for the sea portion, or you can join us for the whole thing. And the other reminder I have for you is that tonight at midnight, if you have not yet purchased your Gratitude and Coffee journal, and you still want to, and get into the draw for the $50 gift card that we're doing tomorrow night live on the podcast, tonight is your last chance to do that. We've got till midnight Pacific time. So any orders placed before then will go into the drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card tomorrow night. And you get one entry for every item that you purchase. So if you purchase 2 items, you get 2 entries. So that's taking place tonight. You go to beforethedirtnapshop.com, and it's about to scroll. Here it comes. It's coming right now. There it goes. Go to beforethedirtnapshop.com. The link is also in the description below, and click on that link. It will take you straight to the journal. And if you want to see any of the other products, then go up the top and have a look at the other ones that are up there. And that's it from us for tonight. So tomorrow night on the live, we will be doing the drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card for those that purchased items from before the Dirt Nap shop. Before the Dirt Nap shop. Jeepers, who put all those P's in there? T's and P's together. So we'll be doing that live tomorrow night on the podcast, and then Thursday night we're going to be Thursday we're going to be releasing some really cool stuff on Thursday. I'm busy designing it right now, getting it together, but ready for Thursday, so we can just hit those buttons on Thursday to put everything live. But I'm actually do a separate video. I am going to do a separate live on that. It'll take place in the morning. In the morning on Thursday before we hit the live button, and then on Thursday night we'll tell you all about it. So look out for the live on Thursday morning. Come join us tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific to see who wins the $50 Amazon gift card for those that have purchased the journal. And until tomorrow night, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, Konara.